Okay, looks like we are live. How's everybody doing tonight on this Monday night? My name is Alexander Pedikov, your host. Welcome to Sasquatch Out of the Shadows Live, as always. Just a reminder, check out previous episodes. Last week we had an awesome time with Eric Altman talking about Bigfoot in Pennsylvania. He had some great stories to share. Next week we are going to have on Kevin Foster, who is an author from Massachusetts. We're going to be talking about Bigfoot in the Hockomock swamp of the Bridgewater Triangle. We'll probably talk a little bit about that on tonight's show as well. There we go. So yeah, like I said, we are joined by Nash Hoover and Brian Burninghouse of Chasing Legends. Myself and others, and basically it's an exploration into various cryptids. So without further ado, let's bring in Nash and the crew, and let's start talking about it. How's it going, guys?
How's it going, man? Good.
Good. How are you?
Awesome. Long time no see, right?
I know it's been about a day.
So for those that don't know, we just got back from Arizona. I just got back on the East Coast this morning, and these guys got back last night, I believe, to Minnesota, different time zones. We were in Arizona for a few days filming for Chasing Legends. So to kind of kick things off, I'm getting a little message saying cutting in and out really bad this time. I think it was just a little thing at the beginning. Hopefully someone can leave a comment just saying, we're not freezing up or anything right now. Just please let me know. My internet is terrible. I need to upgrade or something. But without further ado, let's just get a little background. So Nash, you are a fellow adventurer, paranormal cryptozoology researcher. What kind of kicked off your interest in this subject, or how'd you end up going down this path?
So I got into this stuff. I was in elementary school, was probably 6, 7 years old. So this was, probably 2002, 2003, and somewhere around the early 2000s. I got into the Bigfoot stuff. I kind of just stumbled upon it, thought it was interesting. Loch Ness as well, and then kind of got into the UFO subject. And then over the next, 15, 20 years, I pretty much just kind of fell down the rabbit hole more extensively over the last probably 10 years. And then that kind of led to the creation of Chasing Legends and kind of my film background and interest in film as well. I kind of decided to kind of meld the two interests, and here we are.
I love it. That's very similar to myself, as you know, with kind of a background of film as well as an interest in cryptozoology. So Brian, what got you interested in this kind of stuff?
Well, just like the two of you, I've been interested in film ever since I could probably remember. Going to my first movie was just an incredible experience, and I met Nash through where we worked together. And he was talking about the show and what the show entailed, and just I wanted to kind of get further into the cryptids and want to actually experience them because I know that they're out there. I've just never seen one. I would just love to actually have my first encounter, which I've in Arizona have a little bit, but we'll talk about that later.
Sure. So we've talked about Chasing Legends, but let's just give a little brief intro to what the concept is before we start talking about season 1. Nash, you've obviously been doing it for a long time. What is, if first person maybe hearing about this, what can you tell them? What is Chasing Legends?
So Chasing Legends kind of came to inception almost as a joke back in like 2013. It was myself and my co-creator, Caitlin Keeley. We're just talking one day, and I think I was watching the Animal Planet mockumentary, the Bigfoot, the new evidence or whatever, which I knew was, completely fake and just awful. But they did talk about some real mermaid sighting cases that I had known about. One in specific was the Kiriam Israel mermaid case, which was featured on Destination Truth. So they were talking about that, and I was texting with Caitlin at the time. I was just kind of telling her about this documentary, and I was like, yeah, I says we should go to Kiriam, and we should go to Israel because, they had like a $1 million reward for proof of this mermaid. So I'm like, let's go and, let's go see if we can find it. And, let's bring some people with and document it and just put it out there, even if we don't find it, it might be fun. And so we kept talking, and that kind of led into, what if we did, an entire show? Like, what if, because her and I had always, been talking over the years about doing some sort of a project together, because she was lived in Massachusetts at the time. I was here in the Midwest. So, we were both interested, and that's kind of how we met, was through our interest in the paranormal. So we'd always kind of just talked about doing a show together. So we came up with this idea, and over the next, probably week or two, we continued to talk about it, and came up with the name Chasing Legends, which we had always wanted to use legends somehow in the name. And I was watching that old National Geographic show, Chasing UFOs, and I was like, hey, that works. So it just sounded good. So we ended up calling it that. And then within the first week or two, we had a concept down. We kind of knew what we wanted to do, and kind of how we had an idea of how we wanted to portray it. The overall concept of the show has changed quite a bit since then. There's a few elements that have stayed true, but the overall concept really did change. And then, she eventually left the project a couple years ago. And I, took everything over and kind of rebranded everything, probably last year, and, brought in new people, you guys, and, Jack Wazitza, and obviously my cousin Michaela Hoover has stayed on this, the team since the whole time. And then we brought in Sammy Vernay in 2018. He's kind of the last of the, he's kind of the first of the new team, last of like the kind of old team that, other than Michaela, that's kind of stayed with it. So then, the series overall, it follows myself now. Originally it was going to be Caitlin and I, co-hosting. Follows myself now and my team, which is obviously you guys and Michaela, Sammy, and Jack. And we kind of throw ourselves in these interesting situations and kind of, dangerous environments, and all in the name of cryptozoological expeditions. And each episode follows our research into one cryptid in specific, and we talk with researchers and eyewitnesses that kind of aid us in our investigations. And we usually try to do a day and night investigation, which really helps us cover more ground. And then we also split up, as a team when we're doing our night investigations to cover even more ground, and kind of to, limit how many people we have fumbling around in one area. But yeah, the show, it's a very raw documentary style show. We show everything from landing at the airport to driving to the interviews, everything in between. We document even the bad stuff that happens. I know we had our Motel 6 mishap when we were in Massachusetts. This last time we got stuck in the mud. So, we try to show everything that could go wrong on these expeditions, to show that it's not just the perfect experiences.
Right. It's not all glamorous.
Yeah. We pretty much want to show what it's really like to go out looking for these things, because it's not like you're just going into the woods near your house and, looking for stuff. You got to get out there pretty far.
Right. And that's something, if you watch just TV shows about this sort of stuff, it's really just makes it look so easy. You just kind of head out, they fast forward through all the travel, all the mishaps and things that can happen. Obviously, there's plenty of that happens out in the field. So having done other episodes in the past, basically you decided to do a season 1, which is sort of a more, I guess, official approach to it. Do you want to talk a little bit about the idea behind that?
Yeah. So like I said, I think it was probably 2 months after the creation of the show to when we actually shot our first episode, kind of. and which was our Ghost of Hell's Tunnels episode, which was, I always laugh and tell people that it's, it's ironic that we started a cryptid show with a ghost hunt. But that episode was never supposed to see the light of day. It was merely supposed to be a, hey, I know a spot that has some paranormal activity. It's 10 minutes from our, from where most of us lived. Let's shoot an episode with the concept we have and see if it works. It's all it was supposed to be. So it was myself, Michaela, my friend Patrick Meyer, and my friend JC Yetzer. That was the team. Caitlin lived in Massachusetts, so she wasn't able to come out for these. So we got in the car, we threw, I liked the idea of, the GoPro in the windshield kind of filming us driving and talking. Did that. JC was our camera guy at the time. He eventually changed over to our audio person, which is now Jack's job. So we drove to this town of Faribault, Minnesota, which is just south of where we live, and filmed. We filmed this episode, and we got activity, and we had some pretty crazy stuff happen. So it was so crazy that I was like, we can't not show this to people. So that ended up being our very first episode, which I edited entirely on Windows Movie Maker. Really, really fancy high-tech stuff there.
Humble beginnings.
Oh yeah. I didn't understand how to export things properly. So that's why the episode's in 480 and looks awful, but we tried. So then after that, we had played around with doing a first season back then. And we had some places and some cryptids that we knew that we wanted to discuss. And back then we were kind of going to do both cryptids and ghosts, as long as the ghost stuff kind of fit like a certain criteria. So we kind of I think we had like 4 or 5 episodes planned out that we were going to do. And this was probably about a year after we shot our first episode. So we went out and filmed the first episode, which is our Lake Pepin episode, which as of right now is our most viewed episode. I think it's like 2,500 views over 5 years or so. It was 2014 when we shot this, so almost actually 6 years now. So we went and shot that, and that was supposed to be like the first episode in this season that we were going to kind of film over the summer of 2014. We went out, did our same kind of approach. We tried some different things. This time we actually had interviews that or we had an interview that we were going to do. Got out on the lake. Had a local boat captain that owned like an old style like paddle wheel boat. He agreed to take us out because he had a lot to do with the story and had sightings and stuff. So we interviewed him, and he took us out on the lake, and we kind of just like went back and forth on Lake Pepin, which coincidentally is like almost identical in size and to Loch Ness. It's just not nearly as deep. So kind of doesn't have the right conditions for a lake monster, but there were some pretty good, some pretty interesting photo evidence that kind of came out of the lake that prompted us enough and intrigued us enough to pursue it as an episode. And we had something happen. There was nobody on the lake that day. The weather was kind of bad, but the water wasn't like horribly choppy. It just was cloudy and kind of rainy. And we saw something kind of come up and move against the current of the lake, which Lake Pepin is like a part of the Mississippi River. So all the water flows south. Well, what this was moving north. And so completely against the current. So it wasn't like it was anything floating. And we saw it appear, and we were pretty far away from it, but it was prominent enough where we were able to see it with our naked eye. And we followed that. We kind of tracked that moving for maybe a minute or two, and then it disappeared, and we never saw it again. So it wasn't like it was something natural that would just kind of hit the water a certain way. Like it was something moving. We kind of chalked it up to an unusual wave pattern. We couldn't definitively say if it was, an animal or not. But that was our kind of second episode that we shot that was kind of supposed to be part of a larger season, which didn't, eventually happen. And then over the years, we shot stuff and, we pretty much just promoted the show. We shot episodes that didn't work, or they, it fell through. Things just didn't work out. And it was kind of a mess the first few years after that Lake Pepin episode. We had some people come in with big promises for us that pretty much left us out in the cold. And so there was about a 2-year period that we kind of all stepped away from it and kind of pursued other things. I worked on other projects, just kind of learning the trade of film production. So that way, when we were ready to come back, we had a better understanding of it. And so then we came back. 2018 was like okay, we got to do this. So we went out and we filmed our Devil's Punchbowl episode, which was like the first thing that we had collectively shot in probably 3 years. And I was so nervous about it the whole time. We brought back the original crew. It was me, Patrick, Michaela, JC. That was Sammy's first episode. The Devil's Punchbowl was always kind of something that we had on our list of wanting to do, because it was about an hour and a half away from where we lived. And I was so nervous the whole time because I'm like, we haven't done this in so long. How's it going to go? And that was probably at the time the most well done and professional episode and best looking episode that we had ever shot. So how that went, it pretty much pushed us to where we are today, where we are finally actually shooting our proper first season. So pretty much the 3 episodes that we have out there as of now, I pretty much call them as they were mini pilots. They're self-contained. We're more to show people who we are and kind of what the idea of this show is and kind of how it could look. And then the Devil's Punchbowl episode, I call that more of a traditional pilot.
Right.
And then these episodes obviously kind of follow the criteria we kind of took on with that episode. And obviously we are trying some new things each episode. We kind of, work on some different things that we kind of lacked the previous time. And I think this one we shot in Arizona was probably our best in terms of like professionalism and quality, actually getting everything we needed. So,
right.
Yeah, it's been a ride.
Right. So we just completed a Kickstarter a little while ago here, which was to raise money for this season. So as of now, there are 2 episodes that are done, in the sense that production on location is finished. So there are 2 left to go. Yes, they're both 2 episodes have been shot, and there's 2 to go. So with that said, we have 4 cryptids we're sort of looking into, right? The first one would have been the Pukwudgie of Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. This is a story in the Bridgewater Triangle area. So that's something we did in March. Kind of funny that it was filmed right before, basically 2 days before Massachusetts declared a state of emergency for coronavirus. So the timing couldn't have been better. You guys flew out here to Minnesota. That was our first introduction. I was originally just kind of be a guest investigator, I suppose. And since I've joined the team, and it's been awesome, but we just got back from Arizona, as we said. So really quick, would you want to just talk about the other episodes that are in the plan before we dive a little bit deeper into Arizona specifically?
Yeah, so our next stop in about a month, less than a month and a half, is Lake Champlain Monster. Probably our most well-known cryptid on the season. And then after that, at the end of October, we head to Louisiana and we're gonna tromp around the bog or the swamps a bit and look for the Rougarou. So that's gonna be interesting because all of us except for you have not been to Louisiana, so it's gonna be fun.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's interesting. I've been to the area that we're going to, so I kind of have an idea, but I don't know what it'll be like in October. I was there right after the winter in March, and I think it changes a little bit from what I've heard seasonally, so that should be interesting. But what I really like about it is the fact that there are different types of cryptid. It's not just Bigfoot or a certain type of thing. It's basically all sorts of stuff. You have the Pukwudgie, which is more of a sort of mythological kind of Native American folklore type creature, little people, that sort of thing. Then you have the Mogollon Monster, which is Bigfoot, more of Arizona's kind of a local variety of a Bigfoot Sasquatch type creature. Champ, of course, is a lake monster. And the Rougarou is a werewolf / dogman type story. And each episode has completely different terrain. So you're dealing with the winter in Massachusetts. You're dealing with Arizona, which we saw, which very interesting terrain, a lake, and then bayou swamp environment. So you couldn't have 4 more different environments.
I did that. That was completely by accident too, by the way. Like that wasn't at all the plan. And then I was like, hey, this works.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about Mogollon Monster. Let's talk about Arizona. So we met up on Thursday, this past Thursday in Phoenix, Arizona, and then we basically hit the ground running as soon as we got there.
Yeah, it was kind of I think that was probably the first time we ever done anything like that, where it was literally like from airport to as soon as we left the airport, it was like game time. I mean, obviously we kind of shoot stuff in the airports as we kind of move through them and such like that, but we usually don't have something so soon as we get out. So yeah, pretty much as soon as we left the airport, we got a rental car, which they upgraded us for some reason, and headed out and met with Alex Hearn, who's a local cryptozoologist in the Phoenix area. He spoke with us about everything Mogollon Monster related, told us everything we needed to know about the area itself, the Mogollon Rim. And yeah, it was a really good interview. We had a nice place that we shot it in. Took us a bit to find it, but
I know it was a good primer. I felt like just being there, we hit the ground running. And what's funny is Alex was actually originally from Massachusetts. You could tell through the accent. So he told us a story about he lived in Bridgewater, Mass, actually very close to the swamp itself. And he was saying that there was Thunderbird stuff. He had some sort of an incident with a giant bird in his yard there, which is really interesting considering that our last episode obviously was in the Bridgewater Triangle dealing with the Pukwudgies. But Alex has been in Arizona for a while, and it was a good primer. And the area we interviewed him was where the Phoenix Lights were seen, which is obviously a very famous UFO incident in Phoenix, Arizona, probably one of the most in the world. Right?
Totally unplanned, by the way. We didn't know that was the spot until we got there.
Right, and he mentioned that we were close to, I guess, the NASCAR track that was there.
Yeah.
But there was just this beautiful mountain right in the background. I mean, it was really, Phoenix is a beautiful city. Obviously, it's surrounded by mountains on all sides. And then we went to In-N-Out Burger and basically just stuffed our faces. And Brian and I,
you two specifically, God,
we went pretty hard. It was, because In-N-Out Burgers, they're small. We got the double. The patties are small, so I'm like, I'm gonna need another one. This is not enough.
Definitely.
Fuck, Brian ate enough food for all of us this weekend.
Right. So
definitely picked out,
Oh man, I know Brian had quite an appetite. But as soon as we did that, we then headed to Payson, Arizona, which is about 2 hours from.
No, it's about an hour and a half.
Hour and a half, yeah.
I think it was like 2 hours from where we were, but I think from like Central. So we'll just say 2 hours.
Yeah, I guess because we were a little bit on the periphery of Phoenix where we actually interviewed Alex.
The Goodyear area or whatever, so like West Phoenix.
Yeah, and then we had a rental there, an Airbnb in Phoenix in Payson. Yep. And then Friday was our first full production day. Yeah,
and that was we got up. It was kind of our B-roll secondary interview day, so we had 2 interviews that day, both of them in the same place, so it was nice. And we drove up to the rim, got into some altitude, and we're at like 7,600 feet.
Yeah, pretty high up.
And it's like I remember like our first, like as soon as we came around that corner, you could just see like the rim itself and just like the vast wilderness. It was like, whoa, like we get to look for something in that. Like And I think Alex and I think both of us, we were, that was kind of our realization of like, okay, something could live out here, pretty well undetected. I think as we did our investigation too, it really kind of solidified that fact. And, but yeah, it was so cool. And we met up with Kevin Keaney and Chuck Jacobs. And Kevin Keaney is a guy I found on YouTube that Arizona Squatch is what he calls himself, and he's been investigating in this one kind of area for a few years. And then Chuck Jacobs is one of the two BFRO researchers in Arizona. There's only two.
That's crazy.
And
I had no idea. I mean, it's such a big state, you'd expect there to be more, but I guess that's all they're working with. And
we interviewed them at their kind of private research area and kind of hung out there for a few hours and got to poke around and see some cool stuff. And and then that was the wrap. That was our kind of wrap of day one, or full day one. And then we went and sat at Denny's, and Brian again ate food for 4 people and
picked out some more.
Brian's a pretty skinny guy, so it was impressive to see him eating all that. I mean, it was like,
I have no idea where it goes. Like, I'm honestly convinced you have a tapeworm, and you should probably see a doctor.
So I think what a lot of people don't realize about the area we were in is they think Arizona. I think some of us probably had that conception as well. That Arizona, it's a desert state. There's a lot of deserts, cactuses, rolling hills, that sort of thing. But the area we were in was actually the Tonto and the Sitgraves National Forest, I believe. And these are vast pine forests that are inhabited by black bear, mountain lion, elk, deer, all sorts of woodland creatures. And the area up there is actually not very warm at all. And the rim itself is where the Colorado Plateau begins. So, and as you said, it's kind of 7,600 feet around that. And then underneath it, it's all just basically forest and pine going into the Payson area. And then as you're heading back down to Phoenix, it turns more into desert. But it was definitely different weather than we expected.
Yeah, I think we all kind of expected like, oh, it's going to be, mid 80s, like it'll be nice. Like, it won't be too bad. Nights won't be too bad. But no, it rained the whole time. And like, I'm not like, it was funny because we like woke up in the morning and it was like, nice and sunny. I'm like, oh, sweet, maybe we'll get lucky. And then as soon as I got up into the rim, it was like downpouring and like cold. And like we were literally watching the temperature drop like the higher up we got. And yeah, I think the coldest it got was like 55 on Friday.
I think so, yeah.
And then like Saturday night when we were out doing our investigation was in like the low 60s. I mean, it wasn't horrible. And it wasn't raining too when we did our investigation, which, great. So that was nice. So it wasn't like too bad during the night investigation, but yeah, it was definitely pretty ridiculous the rest of the time. It was cool though. And like it added a nice touch. I mean, there was mud everywhere, but I'd always talk about wanting to shoot an episode in the rain, so I finally got that to happen.
got your wish, exactly. And I think that's what, like I said, we didn't really expect that. I mean, we thought, okay, it's going to be, obviously it's a little bit more, not really mountain, but it's forest. It's probably not going to be 107 degrees like it is in Phoenix almost every day. I think it's supposed to be 111, 117 this week as I was looking at the weather. And we're only, like we said, 2 hours north of Phoenix, so it's not like we're that far north. And we're not really in the White Mountains of Arizona, because Arizona has their own version of White Mountains, like we do here in New Hampshire. But what happens, I guess, is the weather currents, from the Colorado Plateau, they intersect with the weather that's coming down from that Payson area. But Payson itself is 30, 40 minutes from the actual rim itself. So it may be sunny in Payson, but then as soon as we get up to the rim, it's windy, cloudy, and starts raining. And I think some of us didn't even have enough warm gear. We all just had a windbreaker, a little rain jacket. We had to go to Walmart and buy some extra sweatshirts and that kind of stuff just for the night investigation, just because we were out there.
That was wild. Like I've never been anywhere where like the weather changed that drastically.
Yeah, it was all over the place. But then Saturday was our second full production day, and Saturday was basically a B-roll day / exploration. That was our chance to go around, and we actually got to meet up with a friend of ours from the West Coast, Eli Watson of Cryptid Campfire.
Watson.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. He was originally just supposed to come out on a Sunday. He's from LA, and because I had a later flight than you guys were flying out Sunday morning. I was flying out Sunday evening, so I rented a car and I was going to hang out with Eli, but turns out he was going to be there the whole weekend. So he got to come out and join us, and he's actually an executive producer on the series as well. So it was really cool. I think he fit right in kind of to the crew.
Yeah, really though.
Like he was part of the gang the whole time.
Yep.
Yeah, especially for like being the first time like he had met any of us. It was he fit right in. There was no shyness whatsoever for that guy.
Yeah. And it was kind of cool. We had all three coasts, as I say, represented.
Yeah.
With the East Coast, the Midwest, obviously you guys, and then Eli bringing in the West Coast. But so yeah, we spent that day exploring. We went around to the rim. We went into some of these areas, got drone footage, and then we're trying to find an area to do a night investigation. You want to say a little bit about kind of what the process was behind, like how we found that spot, what the idea was behind that?
Yeah, so we drove into we followed like the rim road, which is like I think it's like State Highway 3 or State Road 300 or something like that. It's 300 is the road, but that's like the road that pretty much like traces along the edge of the rim. Sometimes it's within 10 feet of it. Sometimes it's probably a decent distance, but there's trees where you can't see, but it tracks the whole edge of the rim. So we had really no idea where we wanted to go. We obviously knew that we were told by everyone that, the pretty much top of the rim is the place to be. So we kind of just drove around, and I think I just wanted to pull over. I think I just kind of liked the way the everything kind of looked in the area we were in. So I'm like, let's pull over here and let's see what we find, just to kind of get out and stretch our legs, whatever. So we got out and we're like, okay, do we want to go towards the rim or do we want to go towards nothing? And we kind of all collectively agreed on nothing. So we hiked in, I'd say at least a mile into these trees, very slowly. We all kind of, we were pretty fanned out. Like it almost felt like we were like looking for a missing person almost.
Grid
like, and we're all kind of checking the ground for prints. And also any physical remains, which there was a ton of. It was very obvious, especially later on, we realized that there's pretty good elk population. Found a lot of bones. We found half of a jawbone, and we eventually ended up in like a dry riverbed, essentially. So we all kind of went different directions to kind of scout out. I think you and Eli kind of headed south, kind of south, southeast down the river. The rest of us kind of went northeast up this river.
What was interesting about the location too was that you had this dried up riverbed, and on one side there was a lot of these pine trees that were sort of spread apart. So there was a lot of ground in between, a lot of grass, a lot of grazing grounds. Well, right across from the riverbed, there was basically a ridge, and that's where there was some really thick forest.
Yeah.
With debris and all sorts of leaf litter and stuff on the floor of the forest. So it was just a difference between those two sides where you had ferns and fields with the trees on that side and then more dense. So it was almost like that was a great spot to kind of as a vantage spot to see what was going on in the fields. And as we saw, as you mentioned, we found elk bones. So it was kind of interesting.
Yeah. So then so I think we ended up finding like quite a bit of, bones. I mean, it was mostly vertebrae. It was definitely from an elk though, because they were like massive.
Yeah.
And then I think we had kind of meant to like check out some other spots, but I think we all kind of felt like that was such a good area to be further explored because, obviously when we were there, it started raining pretty hard and we weren't all necessarily dressed and prepared. And we all had all of our nicer camera equipment out there that wasn't rain protected. So that was kind of our, okay, let's head back. So we hiked back, we kind of drove out, we kind of came out to this rim vista, like lookout spot that was beautiful, like this huge, like cliff, out, kind of that stuck out almost like a plateau basically. And, took our gram pictures and
yeah,
just kind of hiked around and then I think we all got kind of hungry, and there was the place nearby that we had stopped at the day before that was doing like a barbecue cookout thing on that Saturday. So we all went back, and most of us got the barbecue.
Some brisket. I think there was a few odd ones out who didn't get it. Brian, I think you were one of them. I think. Is your mic on, Brian?
Oh, yeah, it should be. Can you hear me?
Yeah, all good. Nope, it's off again.
Oh,
anyway, but so we went and got the food, and we were just kind of, because we were up on the rim, and people have to realize that the rim road, it's not paved. It's maybe only the first little section of it where you come up off of the main highway, I think 207 or whatever it was, that goes up from Payson. That was the only place where it was paved, and then it's all just sort of rough road. I mean, it's and you need a pretty good vehicle. We saw all sorts of people driving really slow in their city cars, because there's a lot of people from Phoenix visiting that area. But even the day before when we met with Chuck and Kevin, we drove for almost an hour on just these terrible roads. It was perfect for off-roading. We had all these puddles that were splashing through, and it was a lot of fun getting out there. But you could see that it's no easy task getting out to a spot like that.
No, I would not have wanted a lower vehicle in some of those puddles.
Yeah. No. So then we, Saturday night, decided to go back to that spot and kind of do our night investigation. So we went back to this area that we'd found, this dried up riverbed, and we set up a little fire down there. Mm-hmm. And then Eli was with us, so we had 7 people in the whole crew. Yeah. And then we decided to take it from there and sort of split up. And I don't want to give away too much, I guess, of what was going on, but we had some interesting stuff happen.
Because because obviously I took like the majority of the team. I had Michaela, Jack, Sammy, and Eli with me, and then you and Brian just stayed back at the camp. The two of you kind of filmed each other, and obviously your guys' plan was obviously there's a lot of stories with the Mogollon Monster kind of being intrigued by campsites and it kind of coming in close to camp. So that was kind of your plan of attack with your guys' investigation was almost kind of using yourselves as bait. Almost, and it seemed to work pretty well in your favor. Well, the rest of us kind of, we went up over this ridge that Alex was talking about earlier, and it's so dense. Like we got incredibly turned around, and we were, pretty much facing camp and didn't realize we were facing camp. So we were all scared because we had come up across, something that we, because we could see their lights and stuff like that, but we didn't know who it was. And then, eventually realized, oh, it's just them. So we, kind of got our bearings and headed deeper in, and we were getting all sorts of, pretty loud tree breaks and some other kind of weird noises and stuff that we, got. And obviously Jack was kind of able to hear all that a lot better than us because he had his whole audio rig. And
so he had like a boom mic. So
he had like a whole pretty much shotgun mic enclosed in like a wind, like they're called like a blimp, basically. So they're called. It's like this big like cylindrical like tube thing that the microphone goes in and kind of protects from the wind. And then he had it run into his recorder mixer, and he was able to really turn the sensitivity up, so he was able to hear so much. And there was absolutely nothing out there making noise except for us, like because there was a few times where we would stop and it was just like scary quiet.
Yeah, it was a very quiet night.
Yeah. And so he was able to hear everything so perfectly. And obviously, it probably would have been better if we had some sort of like a parabolic dish, but I think with what he had, it worked great because he said he was able to get stuff so clean. And so, we had, so we kind of had the plan to kind of meet up at a certain time because we forgot to grab our walkie-talkies. So we had no way to communicate with each other. And, which is probably was a pretty dangerous mistake, but one we'll never make again.
At least you guys were in a large group. There was 5 of you, so in case somebody, let's say, sprained an ankle or something, there was enough people to help that person out.
Right.
Whereas Brian and I were just sort of hunkered down. And what was interesting, kind of about the approach was I just, in my opinion, like sort of at times I've had activity here in New Hampshire and elsewhere. It's just been by sitting by the campfire. And I think with the Mogollon Monster specifically, as you talked about, a lot of the stories say that it's people that are just hanging around in their camp, and that's when they have stuff sort of happening. And there's a lot of people that camp in that area because it's the closest area to the Phoenix metro area where there's a lot of woodlands and that sort of stuff. So, and what's actually really interesting that we subsequently found out was that there wasn't a paved road to Payson from Phoenix until 1958.
Yeah.
And until then, it basically took it took like 7-8 hours just to get from Phoenix to the Payson area, because it's all just treacherous mountain roads. And it's a beautiful drive when you're driving down there. So the stories of the Mogollon Monster are really, there's some that date back further than that, but like the modern stories, they're a lot more recent perhaps than in other areas where there's been populations for a lot longer, which I think kind of adds a little bit to it, and maybe why it's not as well known as some other Bigfoot stories in other areas of the country.
Absolutely.
So, Brian, what was your what was your takeaway from that? Kind of hanging out by the fire there.
I mean, it was kind of an intense feeling. It was for how quiet it was. It was definitely something that I also thought was going to work, and it essentially did.
We should say that it was not windy at all that night. I mean, very little wind, which was nice. So you could hear sounds from a distance. But as we were sitting there, basically, we saw Nash and the other folks up on the ridge that was sort of right above us, and we heard what basically sounded like a pretty clear wood knock.
Yes, that was my first wood knock anyway that I've heard.
And what was your initial impression? I know I asked you and I grilled you on the spot, but what do you think?
My first impression of it was, well, if it was something or someone throwing a rock at a tree, you would have heard the sound of the rock hitting the ground. And I was like, well, it didn't hit the ground, so something obviously hit their fists or something with wood. But I also heard that I heard that the Bigfoot also does the teeth thing and kind of clicks his tongue, so that we tried to mimic it after, but it just didn't sound right, because I know you threw a rock at a tree later that night and it did not sound like what we heard at all. So that after that, it was kind of like, okay, there's something out here definitely making some noises.
And
there was something out there for sure, because we were getting stuff that was almost like, it seemed like it was leading us away from camp, like it was like taking us away from you guys.
Yeah, what was interesting was during the daytime, when we found this spot that we camped out in, Eli and I were up in the woods on the ridge, and we saw you guys coming down we split up, and you guys probably didn't know where we were. Mm-hmm. And we saw you basically walking, and I told Eli, hey, let's crouch down behind these just logs here and just see if they can notice us. And at one point, Nash was just gung-ho going forward, not, tunnel vision, was just looking forward. And the rest of the guys, same thing. And Jack kind of looked up at us, and I told Eli, I'm like, I bet he saw us. And we went and we asked you guys afterwards, and you didn't see us. And that was right basically above this area where we camped out later. And in my mind, that said, well, this is a perfect spot to basically just observe. You can stand up there. And what was so interesting at night too was we saw you guys coming along that ridge at one point with the flashlights. If you didn't have lights, we wouldn't have known you were there. We did not hear you, even though you were not that far away. It had rained the past few days, so you could traverse the land pretty easily without making a lot of noise. But when we heard that knock, it was coming from the other direction where you guys were. And we did hear at one point even just tree breaking and snapping kind of right on the ridge right before they went there. And I mean, I'm not saying that was what we think it was. It's just, it was interesting, and we'll have to review the audio to kind of see if it can reveal anything else. We had audio, and obviously Brian and I were getting video and kind of recording our reactions. But then you guys came back to camp eventually, and we did the same sort of approach, kind of hung out and just see if we could hear anything. And we did get some other interesting noises.
Yeah.
We got some elk bugles. As we said, there's an elk herd not too far from us that we saw before as we were getting ready to go and set up for the night investigation of the camp. That's when we actually saw a herd of elk kind of walking away, and they obviously ran away. But it was interesting. But based off of that night investigation, what are you guys' thoughts on that area and the stories? Like, what are just kind of some impressions?
Given how dense it was and how we were maybe only a mile from the main road and we could literally hear nothing. I mean, occasionally we would hear a vehicle if they had a loud enough motor or whatever, but
Yeah,
it was very rare that we would actually hear a sound that wasn't us from the known populated areas. But given how dense it was and the fact that the ground there is so packed, and it's obviously it's a pine forest. There's a lot of pine needles down. So we tried with all of our weight and force to leave footprints, and we couldn't. And it just rained, so the ground was supposed to be softer.
Mm-hmm.
So, just given the stories that come out of there, and given the stuff, our personal encounters with the sounds, obviously we didn't see anything, but we heard a lot of stuff that didn't make sense. Added that with the how packed the ground is and how rocky the terrain is, to me, that's like the perfect environment for something to live undetected, because it's not leaving tracks. It's, it's can get way out and, far away from people and never be seen. I just feel like there needs to be more, I guess, research done up there, because I think it's prime real estate for Sasquatch. Obviously, the Mogollon Monster is kind of like a regional name that they kind of gave the encounters, because when this stuff started happening up there, the term Sasquatch or Bigfoot wasn't even invented yet. Back in the the 40s is kind of when this all started. And obviously it's gone past the general stories of the Mogollon Monster, and there's still being encounters reported and sightings and stuff. So yeah, I think I want to go back. Like, that place is so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it's a good possibility that there is something up there that is unexplained.
Right.
Yes.
What about you, Brian?
Well, I mean, Ash was saying, like, there's no way that you would be able to see, if something was out there, but knowing that, the ground was, how, like, firm it was, there wasn't leaving any tracks. Like, I also agree that the longer we could have stayed out there, we might have gotten more evidence, or, like, maybe if we've gone, like, further, closer to the rim, then maybe we would have even, seen some more stuff. So maybe we should eventually in the future go back to
Part 2.
yeah, and just kind of go further than where we were,
Right.
kind of the middle of the forest, just like maybe not so much like a mile out, but like maybe let's try
like 4 or 5 miles, get airdrop somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had FLIRs. We both had, so each team had a
Yeah.
FLIR unit, and I mean, we didn't see anything, but we could hear things, and we heard those elk. Obviously, I did see one mouse as it kind of
Yeah,
was
we
going
saw a
around.
mouse too.
But that was it. I mean, because those FLIRs really can reveal a lot, but at the same
Yeah.
time, it doesn't reveal all that much when you have such a dense,
Right.
the ridge up at the top. That I kept scanning up there when we heard some of the noise, Brian. I kept looking up, and I couldn't really see all that much up there,
Right.
even with the FLIR. I mean, unless it was something that was. I didn't see, when they came off the ridge, when they were rejoining our group, I didn't see them until they were maybe, less than 200 feet away from the fire itself. They kind of emerged out of the trees, and you could clearly see the definition, and the human-sized objects coming out of the forest. So
Right.
fantastic area. It was really interesting to get out there and just sort of, it was like a taste of what is there. And we'll, like I said, we'll have to check out the audio, and it'll be all in season 1 there on the Mogollon Monster episode. So kind of let's take some questions now. Let's see what people have to say. So somebody had a question, Raptor Crazy, a question saying, okay, this is for both of you. What did you do to start a Bigfoot channel here on YouTube or outside of YouTube?
Well, it's not a Bigfoot channel. Unless he's asking you. Unless he's asking you. Questions directed to you, then it is a Bigfoot channel.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of started a channel doing Bigfoot documentaries, and then this show obviously just started a couple months ago, but Chasing Legends was more of the all-around approach, I guess. And the link to the Chasing Legends YouTube is down in the description below. So if you guys want to go over there and subscribe, we will we'll also say Raptor Crazy asks, where is the video? So you want to talk about what the future is, or what's up with season 1? When is that going to be out and all that kind of stuff?
You're gonna have to wait patiently. The goal is like early to mid-February, but we're gonna try and bust ass and get it out sooner. So our last one is end of October, so hopefully we can all get together enough after that to really pump these out and get them out there. Because I want to get this out to everybody as soon as possible, because I want everyone to see, just off the 2 that we've shot alone. I want people to see what happened to us and what we kind of found.
Definitely. And where's it going to be available?
On our YouTube channel for free. We're not asking for any money, because we just want people to see it and enjoy it. And if you don't like it, cool. If you love it, awesome. You'll want more, and maybe we'll do more, and all of that will be revealed.
Absolutely. And those that were Kickstarter backers, they're going to get some cool rewards. We have behind the scenes photos, the poster. There's going to be DVDs eventually as well, so it'll be kind of a collection of the whole season. And it's definitely going to be something you guys are going to want to check out, because I've worked on other projects. I've done a lot of my own projects, and this is just a really cool way. It's kind of my first getting into kind of being in front of the camera. I'm used to being more behind the camera, but this is kind of putting some of those skills to the test. And obviously, I think it's a good combo with Nash and myself and everyone on the team, because we're all sort of coming from a different place and a different perspective. Nash and I are obviously more into the cryptid stuff, and we're kind of with the community and dealing with it. So it's going to be great and visually stunning. I mean, we're talking about some beautiful, as we talked about earlier, some amazing landscapes, from these forests in Arizona to snowy covered areas of Massachusetts to Lake Champlain, Vermont, New York, and then Louisiana. Like I said earlier, you can't ask for just 4 more different locations in one season. So it's going to be a lot. So to answer your question, Lori Jones says, where can we see these monster episodes? Down in the link below will be a link to the Chasing Legends YouTube channel, but also the website is there. So you can go in there and stay in tune for details about things coming forward. And we still have, as we mentioned, 2 episodes to go. So
our website's going to have the stuff too. It's going to be YouTube links, but YouTube's going to be the easiest place to get it in terms of being able to kind of interact with us and
right.
Tell us your thoughts and what you liked, disliked, and
absolutely
all that fun stuff.
And so much of this is because we're really interested in these subjects. We're not just doing this because we want to get famous or whatever, make millions of dollars. We are genuinely interested in this kind of stuff. We do this outside of just making documentaries about it. We're interested in these subjects, so we're creating a product that basically is for people who are interested in this kind of stuff, just like ourselves. Like if if somebody was making it, this is the kind of way I'd want it to be done, because it's almost made for cryptid enthusiasts by cryptid enthusiasts, that sort of thing. So
we try to make it as entertaining and as informative as possible. We want to show you that we obviously genuinely do love these stories and want them to be told properly and presented properly, but we obviously want to show you that we're not just some random group of people that got together to film this show. Like, we're all really close friends. We're all, we have a lot of fun on and off camera. Like, it's not like we stop rolling for the day and we just go separate ways and don't talk to each other. Like, we all stay together. Obviously, this time we were all in one house, and it was awesome because, all got to just kind of hang out and talk, and and then we all talk and hang out outside of the show. Like, obviously I work with Brian, so I see Brian every day. I talk with Alex almost every day. I talk with, and obviously Michaela's my cousin, so I talk to her pretty often, and Jack, her boyfriend, I talk to him pretty often. So, like, we're all, all really a tight knit, like, almost Brian used the term with this one, we're, the Chasing Legends family pretty much is kind of what it feels like at this point, because we're all so close with one another, and we all know kind of how we can talk with one another, and kind of we all joke around with each other, and almost Brian sometimes gets the brunt of it a little bit more than anybody else, but
it's all in good fun though.
Yeah,
it's a team effort. That's what at the end of the day, it is. It's obviously you have the vision, and it's kind of your baby in a way, your concept. But we're all kind of in it as a team, and that's really, I think the episodes will reflect that. And
yeah, no one rides for free on this show. Definitely, it's everyone, and especially with this last one, like everyone worked their ass off. Like especially given the circumstances, like the rain sucked. It was muddy all the time. It was cold and wet. Like everyone gave it their all, and that's all I could ask for. And it's more than I could ask for. Like, it just shows me that the dedication, that everyone gives this is just insane, and it's amazing to watch and be a part of. I love seeing everybody work and doing something. For pretty much they're helping me. Create a vision of mine. And not thinking twice about it, and it's just beautiful.
So, a lot of fun, absolutely. Kevin Hamilton asked, the word monster implies something kind of nefarious. Is there any evidence or stories that these lake creatures have ever attacked boats or people?
Sometimes, kind of depends on the area, I guess.
Yeah, probably depends on the lake.
I think monster is just kind of used as a broad, vague term that. Like with the Lake Pepin stuff, we always kind of refer to it as the creature, like the Lake Pepin creature, because like that person said that it often is pretty nefarious, and like with the Lake Pepin stuff, one of the guys out there that has some pretty good photo evidence said dolphins are carnivores and they eat fish, but they're never called monsters.
Yeah.
So obviously I guess it kind of depends on the circumstance, because obviously there are cases around the world of these creatures attacking boats and stuff. I know the Mogollon Bay is kind of one of those that kind of has the reputation of kind of being nasty, but it's so hard to kind of get stories from that area because it's so out there,
so remote, tough to get to, dangerous to get into. Disease, civil war, all kinds of stuff, malaria, that sort of stuff that really makes it. I mean, I know from people that have been to parts of the Congo trying to get in there. I mean, they've risked their lives. They've often gotten, bouts of sickness coming out because there's all sorts of tropical diseases and critters that bite you and transmit all sorts of stuff. So
yeah. I think with most of like the lake creature stuff, I usually refer to it as a creature rather than a monster.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the Mogollon Monster, like that's like the name it was given, so that's kind of why we're using that.
Right.
But obviously with the lake cryptid stuff is, it kind of depends on the circumstances if it really should be branded a monster.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, classically Loch Ness, I mean, there aren't very many sort of attack type encounters that I can think of in terms of Lake Champlain. In terms of Lake Champlain, the only one I can really recall is a story of a fisherman being pulled by something massive. I don't think they really felt threatened by it. Was just, I mean, probably not disconcerting, or it wasn't very fun, but nothing in the sense of people getting attacked or eaten. And there's probably one encounter I remember seeing on a program a long time ago about Lake Okanagan, Ogopogo, where a woman was swimming and she kind of brushed up against something huge and described sort of a tail or a flipper actually lifting her out of the water and pushing her, and kind of just she flew away from it. I don't remember the account, so if anyone knows that particular story, let me know. But I think it was more of a, if you bumped into a whale by accident, it flapped its flipper and you flew out of the way. I mean, that wouldn't really be an attack, would it be?
No, it'd be more of like, hey, move.
Accidental kind of interaction. But so Stefan says, run into any rattlesnakes?
No, unfortunately. Fortunately and unfortunately. I really wanted to see one. I know Brian did too. I know. I think the most dangerous thing we kind of saw was that wolf that ran across the road in front of us.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I forgot about that. We had a wolf or a coyote. It looked more like a wolf.
Yeah, it was definitely grayer. It was definitely bigger and obviously gray. I've seen coyotes around here in Minnesota, and they're usually more small and dog sized and more brown. So that was definitely looked like a wolf.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
It was a split second because a bunch of the folks in the back,
thing was hauling ass.
They did not even see it. Nash and I think maybe Eli too, were the only ones who saw it because it was so quick. And it's one of the things with the wildlife. By the time you see it, it's already in the brush. You have your camera up, it's already gone. You're not going to get a photo at all.
Yep.
But no rattlesnakes. I think the weather kind of screwed us out of that. I know on the drive back to Phoenix, since it was kind of warm, I kind of like was scanning the road and the side of the road for them, but I never saw them. So no, hopefully next time.
I wonder if I'm not even sure if there are as many up on the rim area. I would
don't
imagine
think so.
Probably a lot less because it's even in the summer now. It's
pretty cool up there.
And we were told that area for about 6 months out of the year is covered in 6 feet of snow, and you can't even get to some of those roads. So it's a very limited window of time in there. But Eli and I yesterday drove around outside of Phoenix in the desert area in the Superstition Mountains. We didn't see any rattlesnakes. We were looking out for them because we did some off-roading with a Jeep, and we were walking around, and I was, very cautiously looking around. Like, I kind of want to see one, but at the same time, if I do, I want it to be very far from me, like not anywhere close.
Yeah.
But we didn't see anything, unfortunately. But like we said, next time.
Next time.
So Juanita Kersey says, all three of you guys are awesome for doing this free too. Glad you do these trips. Thank you, you guys.
Welcome.
Well, thank you for the kind words.
Yeah.
Kelly says, what are you eating, Brian?
Funny story.
Seriously, what are you eating?
I'm eating, you should know, grapes.
Oh, just grapes.
Jesus.
She says, more Sasquatch / Bigfoot, never enough. Subscribed and ready for more. Best wishes on your adventures. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So Nate Elwell, who actually is also associated with the show, he says, I agree. I've not heard of anything malicious-wise in the form of an attack I've ever heard of on Lake Champlain.
Oh.
I think
Nate's actually one of our researchers.
Right. So he's a case researcher?
Yeah. Awesome. He's kind of the one I kind of dump stuff on if I can't find certain things and need to kind of work on more of the production side of things.
Right. And he's actually also from New Hampshire, I believe.
Yeah. Nice.
So we got a lot of cross-coastal connections now.
Yeah, I think you had one of our... Too. Yeah, I think you had Carrick on your show, Carrick St. Laurent on. He also does some research for us occasionally.
Yeah, and he's in New Hampshire too. Great guy. I've had his. You guys can go back. I can't remember now.
I just love outsourcing to New Hampshire, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, we make some great folks over here. Got some big thinkers over here.
You're not from there.
But Nate also says, I guess this is when we're talking about our walkies. That's an easy mistake to make in the moment. I forgot my walk-in investigation before. I wasn't out in the wilderness, but I was in an old furnace factory. Well, that sounds creepier to me.
Yeah, it's like much different strain there, Nate.
He says he's not from New Hampshire. He's originally from Alabama. So fair enough. Jammin says, I've enjoyed listening to you three guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, see, this is what I mean. You could tell we like each other.
And Kevin says, you guys are BFFs.
Bigfoot best friends.
Oh, yeah. When I first read it, I thought it was you are Bigfoot's BFFs. And I'm like,
could be too. I don't know. I've never met the guy, but
I wish it would show itself for us then.
And we could all get along.
His name is Daryl, remember?
Daryl, yeah. So we'll take another question here. Stefan says, did you do any traveling or research with Fort Apache Indian Reservation? Many sightings there in AZ.
We did not.
Unfortunately, we did not.
I think it was close.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things is it's not like as easy to go to some of the like tribal areas.
Stuff,
yeah, they have their own rules, obviously, and everything. So I don't know what, kind of how we would really approach that. We had trouble with that initially here in Massachusetts as well when we tried to talk to the Wampanoag tribe in regards to the Pukwudgies. It wasn't really that they didn't want to talk to us, but we just had a few leads that kind of were all busy during that time period. And this was right before COVID struck, so it was definitely a bit of a tense time. But we made it work even without that, and hopefully someday we'll be able to do an episode where we can look at some of the native folklore, because I think that's an important part. And folklore
studying the cultural aspects of things is always something I wanted to do too. So yeah, I'm hoping that we can kind of get into that, especially when we start getting to like other countries and stuff.
Yeah, so a lot in the pipeline, guys. So closing thoughts, guys, on this episode.
I can't wait for everyone to see it.
Yeah, same. That's really. Yeah, I think we tried some things that we never tried before, and it really worked for us. And obviously, there's some new tactics that we want to try for different things in the future, and
hopefully this really sticks out, and we can hear them. And kind of determine what it was or what we think it would be.
Right.
Yeah, because I know like the stuff that we heard, Jack said he got really clean audio of it, so I'm excited to see, because I know Alex, you had your audio recorder running, so I'm hoping there was some stuff on your end of whatever you guys heard.
Yeah, we'll have to do reviews, and I mean, I'm sure you haven't even looked at most of the footage yet, so there's so much kind of still waiting to be checked out. And I got to transfer footage, so we got the elk on the floor. So there's going to be a lot of really great visuals, not just in this episode, but all the episodes. And each episode, as we talked about, different areas. So we have we have to have different approaches. You can't have the same approach that you would have. You have the basic format. You interview the locals, researchers, you do a day kind of scouting thing, and then you do a night investigation, because that's when basically most of these creatures are reported to be most active at night, and that's when everything's creepy out there. But you can't have the same approach you would have in the forests, the pine forests of Arizona, that you would have on a lake like Lake Champlain.
Right.
So
Right.
Each episode will put us kind of to the test in terms of putting us in dangerous environments where we have other animals that are potentially very deadly, like in Louisiana, you've got alligators and cottonmouths and that sort of stuff. In Arizona, of course, we had the threat of mountain lions and rattlesnakes and other things that go bump in the night. So,
yeah, and I think it really shows. I mean, you obviously you've been in Champlain, but the rest of us haven't, and obviously you've been kind of in the area in New Orleans or in Louisiana where we're going to kind of be. But it's like you research this stuff, and you kind of look on maps, like, okay, it shouldn't be too bad. But until you actually get out into these places, like you have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think any of us realized the terrain and the, how big of an area the Mogollon Rim was until we actually got out there. So yeah, you really cannot, that alone, just filming this episode alone pretty much taught me that we cannot have any sort of like preconceived plan of how to attack the investigation until we actually get to these places. But that's kind of where the beauty of the daytime sweep kind of comes into play. And, obviously we're using that in our favor now, which, we obviously getting ourselves more time now to do those. And yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how we collectively decide how to attack these individually.
Yeah,
definitely. That's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, folks, subscribe to the channel down there. The link is down below. Stay tuned. Chasing Legends. There will be stuff for sale in the future as well. So that will be another way to support the project. And those of you that back the Kickstarter, obviously, thank you. And you will be getting some goodies from that as well. And we're just really lucky to have people that are supportive and backing the project and going forward. It's just so much fun. I mean, it's a dream to be out there and just investigating in this way and going to places that you probably wouldn't think about going. I mean, how many of us would have ended up in a place like Payson, Arizona, if it were not for this story that we were looking into?
Yeah, really. I didn't even know
What are the chances?
Place existed until I started looking into this.
So Lori says, don't forget the walkie-talkies.
Thank you. Thanks for the reminder. Let's do one more question.
Yeah, we're gonna. So that's the thing. We're just gonna make sure that we have all that stuff. I mean, it was just because you're dealing with so much gear that it's just tough to have everything kind of in line. And one little thing you forget happens to be pretty important. But we're gonna make sure we are in the kinks. We're at the end of the day, we're kind of working with each other for the first time as well.
Yeah.
Right.
In a lot of cases, so we're just getting familiar with each other, which is awesome. But
the other thing too, we usually, we don't just go from our wherever we're staying to the investigation site. We usually leave pretty early in the day, so we're always packing everything up that we know we're going to need for the investigation and for the day of filming, and then we never come back to wherever we're staying. So we're always out for the day. So that's kind of what, just in the chaos of of packing everything, those forgotten. And
yeah,
right. We'll make sure that we did have other, obviously that was a big one, but we had other devices for safety and anti-venom kits and first aid kits, all that kind of stuff. And like we said, the approach was, we had 5 people actually going out traversing. So it was a large enough number that probably most animals in the area that were dangerous would have been scared off, at least the dangerous ones. And Brian and myself by a fire, which, most animals won't willingly approach that. So Rocket Reindeer says, my mom's native, and the rule of thumb for native legends is they're transferring a lot of authentic information.
Thank you.
Yeah, interesting.
Cool.
we'll close it out with Stefan saying, "Great show. 10 out of 10 cryptids would not recommend because it brings too much attention to them."
Jeez.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 cryptids.
So yeah, cryptids obviously are not too happy that we're on their trail and that we're trying to.
We're coming for them.
Right. But hey, for the rest of us, it makes it interesting. Checklists. Yeah, Lori, that's exactly right.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was something we talked about after the fact.
Nate
Yeah,
says,
but no one's better at almost finding monsters than us.
Nate says, "I love the show, guys. I can't wait to see the finished product. However, I got to get my little guy to bed. Have a great night, everyone."
Hi.
Night, Nate.
Good night, Nate. Yeah, thank you guys all for tuning in to another episode of Sasquatch Out of the Shadows Live. Thank you, Nash and Brian, for coming on.
Anytime.
Stay tuned, guys. We were going to do probably, oh, yeah. I do want to show this. I got this up at the gas station there. There's the last one they had. It was like a Yeti. Not a Yeti. Excuse me. I'm mixing up my
I can make mine try to do that.
This is the Yoga
Some
Squatch.
sort of a stretch.
It was funny. It was a
stretch.
Yoga Squatch. We got it at the place where we got the barbecue up there on the rim, and
Doing the old Egypt.
it was the last one they had, and we asked them, "You guys have Bigfoot stuff?" And they were like, "No, we don't. We don't really know many stories or anything." So they kind of liked it, but what are you gonna do?
I got my stuffed Peppy too.
Nice. Show and tell.
I can't show the other stuff I have on my desk for copyright reasons, but
good luck in future investigations. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Peace. Thank you. Good show. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, guys, thanks again, and stay tuned for next week's episode. We'll have Kevin Foster on again. We're talking about Bigfoot in the Hockomock swamp. He's looked into that, and that's the Bridgewater Triangle. So back to the Bridgewater, there's the thylacine. That's probably Nash's
favorite cryptid.
His favorite cryptid. Thank you, Heaven-Bound Daughter. All right, guys. Well, have a good night, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
The wrap.